Assassins of the Dead 1, Dark Blade, written by Avril Sabine. Book description. Meikah's family are templars, as far from necromancers as it's possible to be. When she learns that not only can she see the dead but also wield magic, she fears what the future holds. She doesn't want to become a necromancer or a dark blade, but there seems to be few choices now available to her. It doesn't help that people have begun to treat her like she's an evil necromancer, and rumors have started. Nor does she believe Kellan when he says she belongs with the assassins of the dead. They seem to be a mismatched group that include nobles, an assassin, a sorcerer, a shapeshifter and a vampire. Not at all like templars. And if she was to join them, the rumors will never end, and her family might actually disown her. Chapter 1. Meikah strode along the edge of the road, her gaze focused on the cobblestones beneath her boots, trying not to think about the sealed parchment in the pocket of her trousers. It felt heavier than it should, the worry she tried to ignore getting worse by the minute. If it wasn't for the fact that her sister would catch up to her, she would have walked slower to postpone arriving home. Trying to distract herself, she glanced at the various shops of Drayton as she strode past, most of them preparing to close at this time of day. They lived not far from the shopping district, on the edge of one of the wealthier suburbs. Her mother wanted to move closer to the Duke's castle, but it was almost impossible to buy anything in that district. No one wanted to sell. Meikah. She didn't need to look behind to know her sister hurried after her. She could hear the sound of her boots against the cobblestones as she ran. Not slowing her pace, she ignored Anna in the hope she'd get the message and leave her alone. The sound of footsteps continued to come closer. Anna slowed as she reached Meikah's side. "Didn't you hear me calling out to you? It wouldn't surprise me if you failed today's exam if that's how much attention you pay in class." She tried to focus only on the sounds that her boots made against the cobblestones. But it couldn't drown out Anna's words. "I heard what happened today." She'd have been surprised if Anna hadn't heard. The whispers had begun almost immediately. Seconds after the stunned silence. At least she'd have 4 weeks off after today's exam. If she failed, there'd be no returning to the academy. "You should have paid more attention." "I did." At 22, her sister was 4 years older than her but always treated her like she was far younger. She didn't know which was worse, the way Anna had always done better than her at the Templar Academy, or the way she treated her like a child. Anna continued as if Meikah hadn't spoken. "Our family has a long history of those who've graduated with honors from the Templar Academy. You're letting everyone down." Meikah was tempted to remind Anna their maternal grandfather had once been a beggar in the streets. Until his ability to see the dead had earned him a place at their paternal grandfather's side. She doubted her words would slow the bragging of the honors Anna had received at each testing. Her shoulders dropped lower. Was it possible to somehow lose the results on the way home? A shout across the road interrupted Anna. Her brown eyes narrowed as she looked at the 2 young men who ran down the paved footpath, laughing. A man yelled after them, picking up the hat they'd knocked off his head, warning he'd get even. "Poor Lila. She's so embarrassed Kellan's her brother. At least you're not that lame. You try, I suppose." Meikah slowed so she could watch Kellan as he continued to run down the street, his black hair tied at the nape of his neck, his companion keeping pace. She'd never seen the young man he was with before. He wore a hooded jacket, the hood having fallen back to reveal sandy blonde hair tousled by the wind. The 2 of them wove through the handful of people standing around talking, resulting in more shouts at their antics as they ran around a corner. Anna grabbed hold of Meikah's upper arm. "Stop staring at them. Come on. We need to get home and find out how you did today." You better have passed. I couldn't live with the shame if you failed. Meikah pulled away from her sister's grip, stumbling on an uneven cobblestone. She took a step towards the paved footpath when a wagon rumbled past in front of her, 2 coffins securely tied in the back, chains and a padlock to prevent anyone from opening either of them. As if we don't have enough vampires in town. The Duke should chase them out like they do in some of the other towns. Anna grabbed Meikah's upper arm again. Come on. She let go before Meikah could pull away, striding towards home. Meikah stared after her sister. Like her, Anna wore the black trousers and long-sleeved shirt of the Templar Academy, small brass buttons running down the front. Being as she'd passed her first year, Anna wore a sword at her side and would soon pass her 5th year and start her 3-year apprenticeship with a Templar. Meikah wanted to be able to carry a sword too. She brushed the tips of her fingers across her pocket, feeling the parchment beneath the fabric. Meikah began to follow her sister, who was getting well ahead of her. She eyed Anna's rich brown hair that was kept extremely short, yet one more difference between them. Her hair was plaited so it hung down her back. Her sister kept telling her she'd be better off cutting it short. That a warrior needed an appropriate haircut. She feared she wasn't much of a warrior. A true warrior wouldn't have been nervous for an exam. She pressed her hand against the parchment in her pocket. A pity Kellan hadn't run past her, so she could have said he'd taken it from her. It was something no one would have doubted with the many pranks he'd played in the past year. Anna glanced over her shoulder. Hurry up! Meikah opened her mouth to warn her sister she was about to walk into a warrior. Her mouth remained open when her sister walked through him. A shiver ran through her and she came to a stop, staring at the warrior who began to cross the cobblestone road. He headed towards the man who'd yelled at Kellan, now dusting off his hat, that he'd finally caught after a gust of wind had carted it along the footpath. Meikah? What are you doing? Close your mouth. You look like an idiot standing there gaping. The warrior drew his sword, continuing to stride towards the man who remained in place, checking over his hat. Anna walked back to Meikah, grabbing her by the arm again. What are you doing? Everyone will be waiting to see how you did in your first-year exams. Can you see him? She pulled away from Anna. Who? The warrior with the drawn sword. Her mouth fell open again when she saw a woman ride her horse directly through the warrior like he didn't exist. Spirit. The word was a whisper. What? Anna looked around. We can't see spirits. We're not necromancers. It's not only necromancers who can see spirits. She didn't like it when people insinuated her grandfather was a necromancer. He had no magical abilities at all. She continued to stare at the spirit that had almost reached the man who'd started walking towards the group, talking near the corner. She wanted to turn away, pretend she couldn't see. She didn't want people thinking she might be a necromancer. But the man would die. Sorry. Before her sister could ask her what she was sorry for, she drew the sword from her sister's scabbard and ran towards the spirit. The man glanced in her direction, breaking into a run when he saw her coming towards him. The spirit looked over his shoulder, turning around when he spotted her. You can see me? Yes. The spirit grinned. A necromancer with a sword. Fascinating. They tend to prefer daggers or straight magic. I'm not a necromancer. She had no magical ability. Then you can't harm me, only be a minor hindrance. Meikah. Stop carrying on and bring my sword back. The spirit laughed. Those who can't see are so entertaining. Step out of my way or the one calling out to you will be the next one to die. Fear for her sister raced through her. "You will leave my sister alone." She swung at the spirit, her sword connecting with his, the sound of metal striking metal ringing out in the street. Anna screamed. The man who'd been running turned around and shouted for help. Several people called out the word necromancer.